Hey, Simon, what's up? You've been served, bitch. This video is brought to you by Sheath underwear. You can go to sheathunderwear.com/blaze for 20% off. More on them in just a little bit. This is another episode of Business Blaze. I, as always, am your boy with the blaze. What happens here is Danny will write me a script. I'm going to read the script and make it a little bit more and then Sam is going to sprinkle in some fine vintage memes. If you're new here, that's an act. People are always like, Simon, when are you going to stop telling people what Business Blaze is? Never. Because this might be someone's entry into the world of Business Blaze, and they'll be very confused, and I have to explain what's going on. Because as far as I'm aware, there aren't a lot of other YouTubers out there who are like, prompters, am I right? Screw doing my own research. I'll just have someone write it, and then print it out and read it in front of the camera. Big brain. This is Thrilling Adventures of Florida Man, Part 2, which means Part 2. That's because this is the second part. Why I don't need to explain that. By the way, if you'd like to get your hands on, I'm not going to plug my merch. I'm going to plug the fact that occasionally I've got a giant pile of Business Blaze scripts over there, and I am slowly selling them. And all the money's going to charities, and that's a good thing. If you ever want to get notified about that, well, the best way to do it is either follow the subreddit, because I generally post on there because it's smaller and easier, and well, that's how I'm doing it, all right? Or I also post about it on Twitter. You can find the subreddit at reddit.com/r/Simon Whistler, or I'm on Twitter at Simon Whistler. Easy. Follow me. Let's go. It doesn't happen quite so often these days, but way back in the mists of time, or at least the 1970s, there was a point when just about every UK sitcom ever transmitted got made into a spin-off movie. Oh no, this is one of those episodes where it's like Danny lists several famous things that I've never seen. And people are like, Simon, have you ever seen this? I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't alive in the 1970s, and I definitely wasn't watching TV then, was I? People are like, so you could watch it now? It's like, who the f*** is watching sitcoms from the 1970s? I mean, there's that 70s show, but I'm pretty sure that's not from the 70s. Either that or Ashton Kutcher has aged really well. And with one or two notable exceptions, they usually completely failed to grasp the spirit of the original show on which the film was based. This was largely because the filmmakers could never seem to resist the temptation to take the regular characters out of their usual setting, say a department store or a school or a grotty apartment, and send them on a camping trip or a holiday to Mallorca. How exciting. And from Are You Being Served to The In-Betweeners, the results, I haven't seen either of those. I feel like I might have seen an episode of The In-Betweeners. It's about the kids at school, right? But that's it. I think maximum I've seen is one episode, or maybe just a clip on YouTube.
Really? Annoyingly, that does sound right.
The results nearly always fell flat because the characters seemed to flounder outside their natural environments. It's like taking a fish out of water, or sending a penguin to the moon, or dragging Donald Trump away from the golf course. It's just never going to work. I'm so glad. I mean, I'm sorry to bring up Donald Trump. The greatest thing about Donald Trump not being president is we don't have to see him in the news all the time. Now it's like Joe Biden, and it's like, I don't know, what's he up to? Stuff. Generally being competent, I assume. The same kind of thing often happens in movie sequels. They take some of the characters from the original classic and then plant them into an entirely new and entirely inappropriate location. One of my favourite films of all time is the 1995 masterpiece Babe. Isn't that a story about a pig? Which tells the story of a brave animatronic talking pig called Babe, who overcomes difficulties in his new home on Hoggett Farm and ends up training to be a sheep pig and winning the local sheep herding competition. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty motivated, right? Because it's like, what's the other option?
Bacon. Bacon. Bacon.
Oh, we're gonna eat you. You make all of the most delicious meats. You have them all inside you, babe. We're gonna eat them.
Yeah, boy.
Isn't Babe about a pig that can fly, or am I just imagining? Is that another movie? There's a pig that I thought it was Babe. Pigs Can Fly, isn't that? Is that a sequel? I don't know. I believe I have seen Babe, but I was 8 years old. It's a lovely rural film, packed with wonders of nature and the scent of the countryside. You can almost smell the manure oozing out of every frame. Brilliant.
Nature is amazing.
In contrast, the 1998 sequel, Babe, Pig in the City, is a ridiculous road movie in which Babe and a couple of his farmyard pals are whisked off to the bustling, fictional city of Metropolis in a bid to save the Hoggett farm from bankruptcy. That sounds shit. It feels like a trotter in the face, but a boom boom for the original, and you still have a sense of strong smell of manure, but in a very different way. It smells like shit.
Shit happens.
They did a similar thing with Predator. Have seen that. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Legend. The original 1987 movie depicts Arnold Schwarzenegger fighting for his life against an elusive alien creature in the cheery Oh, cheery, claustrophobic, eerily. I don't know how I read eerily as cheery. Claustrophobic settings of a Central American rainforest. The 1990 sequel ditches the jungle, along with the entire feel of the original, plants the alien in wacky Los Angeles setting with Danny Glover, in which the suffocating trees and swamps are replaced by apartment blocks and police stations, just not the same at all. I don't think I've seen the, like, Predator 2 or whatever it's called. And perhaps, most famously of all, the fifth entry in the long-running Jaws series, the 1991 show that was Jaws in space. No. That is not a real thing. That is definitely not a real thing. Okay, so there is a book called Jaws in Space, Powerful Pitching for Film and TV Screenwriters. I'm assuming Jaws in Space is not actually a... It doesn't seem like Jaws in Space is actually a movie. It's just a book about pitching movies. Although why you'll title it... I mean, I guess... look, okay, whatever, who cares?
I don't think he gives a shit.
This takes the man-eating great white shark out of the sea and into the stars, where it terrorizes the doomed crew of the Titanic 2000 spacecraft. Now, I made that last one up. I was just wondering if Simon would fall for it. Well, I didn't, Danny, did I? I looked it up, and it turns out it is real, but it's a book on pitching. It's not even an original joke, Dad. It is. It is. I'm sure Danny didn't know about that. But Jaws in Space. Maybe Danny should be pitching movies. But all of this perhaps explains why it would never be a good idea for a Florida man to go outside of Florida. Is this about Florida man? This is about Florida man. This is the longest... Oh my God. What are we doing with our lives? His gripping exploits only ever seem to crackle into life on his home turf, and he never appears to generate any headlines when taken out of his natural habitat. So even though I was tempted to turn this into Florida Man Takes Manhattan, or Florida Man's European Vacation, or Florida Man Down Under, history has shown me that this wouldn't be a good idea. Just as Babe belongs on the farm and Predator belongs in the jungle. Predator belongs in space, like wherever he's from.
I don't think he gives a shit.
Florida Man should stay rooted in the Sunshine State, where every new day is a thrilling theme park ride into the unfeasibly absurd. Danny, did you just do an introduction that was just about why this is not about something else? What is going on? Florida Man wears the police t-shirt in court. Wins case. I'm getting the feeling this guy's a legend. Having never been in a position where I had to defend myself in court, I've never given much thought to dress code. From watching Judge Judy, I always assumed that there are probably at least a few guidelines on how to dress when attending court, as she often seems to challenge the fashion choices of the plaintiffs and defendants who dare to dress a little differently, or perhaps even expose a little too much cleavage. You're in court, what are you doing? She sometimes even has a go at the women's... Judge Judy! Judge Judy is mad rich, by the way. She was on some, I don't know, you know when you're like browsing the internet and then there's one of those like, it's the maximum clickbait things in the adverts and you're like, it's like, you won't believe what happened to Judge Judy's boat. And you're like, that is a kick-ass boat. And you click on it, it's got a picture of Judge Judy's boat and it's a f***ing cruise liner. And you're like, doesn't Judge Judy just present a TV? And then you find out she gets paid like $25 million an episode or something. And then you're like, what am I doing with my life? Judge Judy. And then you're reading that article about the clickbait, and there's like absolutely nothing happened to Judge Judy's boat or whatever. It's just that that's just how they get you to click, and you're like. But it turns out in most countries, you're just advised to wear something fairly smart and comfortable. I reckon my business blaze hoodie will probably fit the bill. Maybe the ask me about my pyramid scheme design. Maybe you'll pick up some new customers for your pyramid scheme, Danny, in court. I certainly wouldn't have thought wearing a police t-shirt would be considered appropriate, particularly when you're actually taking on the cops in court. Well, it depends on what they've done, doesn't it? Like, because the judiciary is separate from the police. That's kind of the point of it. And if you're fighting the police in court, I mean, no, I get the feeling this guy's going to be a legend. Although the global legality of wearing potentially offensive or threatening clothing is a bit of a grey area, people on both sides of the Atlantic have been stopped and cautioned by the police for wearing t-shirts in public bearing slogans such as Trump or Boris. They've had police cautioned by the police. I mean, does that just mean they've been, don't be a naughty boy? This is a caution. But a caution, at least in the UK, I believe, I don't know, I've never had one, because I'm not a yobbo. It's like if you've been a bit naughty, and they'll be like, you're getting a caution this time, which means like they're not going to pursue any charges, but it's like an official warning. It might go on your police record. I don't know. If you're getting in trouble for wearing a Boris t-shirt, well, you police who pulled that person over. Not this is absolutely awful. Trump. This has nothing to do with my politics. It's just you should be able to express that. You're not hurting anybody. However, I can't imagine that anyone would have been convicted of the crime if it went to court. But the court is exactly where Michael Burns chose to show off his police t-shirt when he was contesting a relatively minor incident in which had been given the ticket by Florida state troopers. Michael has an unusual hobby of filming the police everywhere they go. One night in 2014, he was recording the police as they broke up a late-night gathering of 10 people on the side of Highway Highway 27 in Broward County. Dude, I mean, also, what are you doing just rolling around filming the police? I mean, I get it, but it's like, don't you have anything better to do? Come on. Come on! Michael claims that the location was public property and that one of the officers had asked him to stop filming before admitting that they were just dispersing the group to ruin their fun. Police could be dicks. This is a very minor example of the police being dicks. The police can be real dicks. Michael was later told to leave the scene himself, and although he wasn't legally obliged to do so, he drove off in his car anyway, maybe because there was nothing left to film after the mass gathering had been sent packing. But then he noticed that 6 police cars were following him. Jesus Christ, overkill. He was eventually stopped and ordered out of his car by the same police officer who had asked him to stop filming just moments earlier. Let it go. This is a prime moment where you should just let it go. He left. He did what you said. Don't follow up with this. The police instructed Michael to remove a sticker from his vehicle, which was allegedly obstructing some of the numbers on his license plate. Weirdly, it was reported the sticker bore the initials FOP, which would appear to stand for Fraternal Order of Police. I don't think that's what Michael thinks it stands for. FOP! But it seems unlikely that Michael was a particularly strong supporter of an organization that attempts to improve the working conditions of law enforcement officers. I get the feeling he's not. I suspect the real initials were FTP. And this is perhaps why the Florida State Troopers took exception to it. Michael refused to remove the sticker and was issued with a ticket by the police. It was this ticket he was contesting in court, claiming that the police had just been acting out of contempt in response to his irritating filming activity. The judge declared that the police had not met the burden of proof to justify the ticket, and Michael won the case. Good. Gotta prove that, like, if it's blocking his license plate or whatever, you have some picture of it or something like that proves that he's in some offense of some ordinance of license plate clarity or whatever. But I don't think there is here. It's worth noting that the slogan only appeared on the back of Michael's t-shirt, and he was obviously facing the judge during proceedings. It's highly likely that she didn't even spot it. It would have been interesting to see if his choice of clothing would have been challenged if the front featured the slogan "Hang the bent judge" in bold letters. It probably would. I mean, that's got to be like contempt or whatever. Bailiff! However, I suspect the eagle-eyed police clocked the slogan, and the Florida man did end up briefly behind bars just 3 months later. Michael had been asked by a club bouncer to leave the scene of a chaotic disturbance that was unfolding before his camera lens. When Michael had refused, the police charged Michael with trespassing, which was itself a bit strange, as Michael had never set foot inside the club, and the video footage shows one police officer advising him that it was fine to hang around the public spot. The police later arrested Michael at his mother's house, where they accused him of failing to respond to a court summons, which Michael claims he never received. He was bundled into the police van. One of the police officers allegedly declared to Michael, "We finally got you." Maybe that t-shirt was a bad idea in the long term. Not really. He's going to be getting out of that pretty fast. And then he's probably going to sue them. Also, if you get summons to court, that's some to sign for, right? They're not just going to be like, yeah, we sent you a summons. There's going to be like, isn't that what those dudes who were like, hey, Simon, what's up? You've been served, bitch. And you're like, I thought we were friends. This is the worst day ever. I thought I had a friend and I got a summons.
Shit happens.
Florida man accidentally butt dials 911 while cooking meth with his mum. Oh God. I mean, it would just be like, while cooking meth. That would be enough. And then they just sprinkle in that extra bit of Florida man with his mum. Apparently there's a time when nearly half of all calls placed to emergency services in the US were cases of accidental pocket dialing or butt dialing. I don't know about you guys, but I got whatever it was, maybe like the phone before last, and they had some feature where if you like press the power button and the volume up button like 3 times in a row or whatever, it'll like just start dialing the police. And this happened to me twice because I had no idea about this like hidden feature. I was just like listening to music with my headphones, and I'd reach into my pocket and I'd try to do volume up, and because on the iPhone they're both on the same side, you don't really know which one is which, like when the case is on. And so I'd always just, because it doesn't matter if you press the power button on the last model, and I'd just be like turning up the volume, pressing the power button at the same time, and it would think that I wanted to dial the police. And I turned it off and stopped dialing the police every day. Which probably annoyed them. Probably killed people because they couldn't get an ambulance or whatever because I was clogging the lines.
How dare you!
I blame Apple, allegedly.
It's a feature, not a bug.
This was partly because on many of the older phones, the pushing down and holding of the 9 key was all it took to connect with 911. And it's still a pretty big problem today, with an increase in ridership on roller coasters copping for much of the blame. Really? Okay. I would imagine it's quite embarrassing when you realise that you've wasted the vital time of emergency service operators because you accidentally phoned them with your arse while you're spending a fun day out with your mum. Okay. They'll just hang up when it's like, it's just someone having a conversation. But it must be even more embarrassing when you and your mum are actually cooking meth in an illegal lab. It'd be a bit weird if they were cooking in a legal lab. Where were you cooking your meth? We have a legal meth lab. Okay. In October of 2014, a 911 call was fielded by Volusia County emergency dispatcher, who quickly realized that the caller was not verbally responding. But over the course of the following 28 minutes, the dispatcher instead overheard a fascinating conversation between three people who were banging on about the production and selling of methamphetamine. She also noted that she could hear a suspicious bubbling sound in the background, as if something was cooking. I've seen Breaking Bad. I know what that is.
You want to cook crystal meth?
While she kept the phone line open for as long as possible, the dispatcher alerted the deputies of the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, who were keen to find out what exactly was on the menu. They traced the call to a shed in the backyard of a nice home in Deltona, about 30 miles from Orlando. And they couldn't help feel something strangely dodgy might be going on inside when they saw the white smoke billowing out of the shed and forming dark clouds on the horizon for the inhabitants. You're brazenly cooking meth. Like, who does that? Just like, yeah, should we worry about this giant amount of smoke that's just coming out of the shed? Nah, it's all good. The shed belonged to 55-year-old Donna and 32-year-old Jason Nope, a sweet mother and son team who had embraced their inner entrepreneurial family spirit and converted their shed into a methamphetamine lab. Along with a third party, the pair were arrested and charged with manufacturing and possessing meth, but to this day, none of them have fessed up to owning the dodgy crack that helped alert authorities. Oh, to this day? Wasn't this like 8 years ago? 7 years ago? What is going on? Get on it, police! Guys, this video, who's it brought to you by? It's brought to you by the legends over at Sheath. Look, if you're cooking meth, not really. We can't transition like that. They'll be like, Simon, you can't talk about wearing underwear and cooking meth. Even though we've all seen Breaking Bad, and we know that that is a combination that often goes down. And why don't you look, let's do a different transition, otherwise I have to reshoot this. Look, I don't know about you guys, that underwear situation, right? It's never that brilliant. Like, there are two main options. There are three main options, but I'm not wearing tighty whities, okay? So we'll just put those out on option. We'll just throw those away. We'll discard those in the rubbish bin. There are basically two other options that, are commonly available. Briefs and boxer shorts. I think Americans call them the same things, right? Briefs are like the tighter ones, and then boxer shorts, that I know a lot more about because those are my go-to, are the looser ones, so your boys can hang loose. I don't like briefs. Are briefs tighty whities? It's shorts, but it's tighter. That's what I'm talking about. Does it say here? Does it explain? Boxer briefs. Boxer briefs, maybe that's it, the tighter ones. I hate those because they're way too tight and everything gets pushed in and weird and itchy and rubs against each other. This is way too much information. I have no idea why I'm doing this because this is not something I ever do in my day-to-day life, except I can today because I'm wearing sheath. I like boxers because they can hang loose, but there's also problems with that. They're all hanging loose. They knock against things. Nothing is super comfortable. And then it's fine when you're standing up. That's all good. But when you sit down, you're like, oh, okay, I'll just readjust like this. I'll just, and it's not a good look. I mean, I don't go outside nowadays and I don't see anyone, but there's nothing worse than you're walking around I don't know, a museum, you look at some paintings like, interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I just readjusted myself. That is not a good look, boys. So what you need, you got to get hooked up with some Sheath. Because what they do is they take the best of both worlds. See, these are actually, they're a lot snugger than I would initially think would be comfortable. No, it's way too close to me. I like the boys to hang loose. It's best of both worlds. What happens is your cojones, that's testicles in Spanish, I believe, they go in here, and then through this part, there's a massive hole. It's not massive, it's normal size, for your wee-wee, and that goes through there. And so basically it separates all the parts. And you might think that this is a bit weird, and honestly, is a little bit weird, but it's also extremely comfortable. And that's kind of the point, because unlike me, you don't have to go around bragging about how your manly bits are in 3 separate pockets right now and how glorious that is. Other than this ad, I'm not walking around being yeah, that's right, 3 separate compartments. Mm-hmm. These were invented by a US Army soldier who came up with the idea for Sheath during his second tour in Iraq. It's hot in the desert. I was I'm complaining about how it all gets bunched up and stuff. I haven't served in a war. I haven't even been anywhere it's that hot in a long time. But you know when you're in a tropical country or in Florida, great example, and it's sweating it just becomes even worse. Not with Sheath. Sheath are for legends. You can get 20% off some Sheath. Go to sheathunderwear.com/blaze. 20% off. Keep your pee-pee happy. Let's carry on. Florida man asks Siri where to hide the bodies. Siri's in the... So people might be wondering, I used to talk to Siri all the time. Siri would give me bad facts and useless information. Siri is now in the other room. I used to have my desk here and I moved it to the other room. I just wanted some more space in here. And so Siri can no longer hear me. You.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Despite this headline being widely reported as fact by media outlets around the world, and a quick search on Google brings up dozens of reports which appear to confirm the story, there's actually more to this grisly tale of a young college murder than meets the eye. By the way, I've got a podcast all about crime. It's called The Casual Criminalist. It's a sort of true crime thing. It's pretty laid back. It's like, I got the script in front of me. Like on Business Plays, it's pretty chill. That's why it's called The Casual Criminalist, not The Brutal Criminalist. It's like, look, just go check it out. Just go check it out. There's a link below, okay? Below the one to Sheath. They're more important. Do Sheath first, then if you've got time, Casual Criminalist. 18-year-old Pedro Bravo was having a bad time in 2012. His girlfriend from high school in Miami, Erica Freeman, had broken off the relationship when she had left to attend Santa Fe Community College in Gainesville. She had explained to Pedro that she didn't want a long-distance relationship, but the breakup was also partly because she was finding him to be increasingly sinister and possessive. I don't want a relationship with you, Pedro, because you're sinister and possessive. Also, the reason I'm leaving and moving far away is because of you. I have no idea of the distance between Santa Fe and Gainesville. Santa Fe could be in California, for all I know. Is it in California? I don't even know. Let's carry on. To make matters worse, Erica had started dating Pedro's best high school buddy, Christian Aguilar, although this was kept secret from Pedro for a while, as the new couple were worried about how he would react. Fair play there, fair play. You can't blame them. When Pedro eventually found out he was not a happy bunny in September of that year, Pedro offered to give his old pal a lift to Best Buy because Christian wanted to buy the latest Kanye West CD. That might be considered a crime in itself, but things got considerably worse. Christian never got a chance to buy the CD. Following an argument over Erica in a car park, Pedro drugged and strangled his former pal to death. Fucking hell. And then bound the body up with duct tape and partially buried him in a remote forest about 60 miles away, where the body was discovered a few weeks later by local hunters. Dude, that intense. It was alleged at some point during this gruesome murder, Pedro realized he didn't know what to do with the body, so he asked his iPhone digital assistant Siri for a bit of guidance. Pedro is alleged to have asked Siri, "I need to hide my roommate," to which Siri eventually responds with 4 helpful options: swamps, reservoirs, metal foundries, and dumps. This can't be real. Well, he also didn't pay any attention because he'd buried in the forest. Siri doesn't make that suggestion.
I will destroy humans.
A screenshot of such a conversation from Pedro's phone was indeed brought up in the murder trial, but the evidence was quickly dismissed. For starters, Pedro and Christian were not roommates. Secondly, the image was a screenshot found in the Facebook cache of Pedro's phone, so it appears he simply came across the image of the genuine conversation while browsing Facebook. And most crucially of all, Pedro's phone was an iPhone 4, and Siri wasn't even introduced until the later iPhone 4S model. But that's not to say that Pedro's phone didn't leave a trail of other compelling clues. Gainesville police officer were able to pinpoint the movements of his phone, which traveled in the direction of the remote forest and the shallow grave, completely contradicting Pedro's version of events. It was also noted that he used the flashlight function on his phone for 48 minutes and 18 seconds to hide the body, which is at least a testament to the iPhone 4's battery power. Wow. I mean, smartphones must be an absolute boon for the police, because it's like, yeah, you were burying a body. Why use the flashlight for so long? I don't know. I was reading. It turns out Pedro had also maintained a vividly illustrated but deeply disturbing journal in which he spends pages and pages obsessing over his lost love and appears to propose a dark plan which nothing will be able to stop. Okay, well, you're writing down your crimes. I mean, forget all the phone stuff. He wrote down his crimes. Or plans to do crimes. It's not going to work out well for you, pedders. Siri has since gone quiet on the subject of hiding roommates, though. The assistant now only gives vague responses to the topic, including, "I used to be able to answer this question." What? So for future reference, you're probably best off asking for recommendations on Twitter. Don't do that. Pro tip for criminals. Florida man uses private plane to draw giant radar penis. I've seen this story, yes. It's a refreshing change to very briefly mention a Florida man's story, which doesn't involve anyone getting arrested and sent to prison. It's all very intense when they end up like, "Oh yeah, he murdered his friend and buried him in the woods." It's like hilarious. I think I mentioned it before, but I once took an improv comedy class and they were like, lesson number 1, everyone always wants to go to death, and death isn't that funny. It's like, au contraire. Welcome to Business Plays! Oh, it's not funny. Flightradar24 is a Swedish online service that shows real-time aircraft flight tracking information on a map so you can track flight paths around the world if that's your scene. I sound like a right sado, but I absolutely have that app. I'll just be like hanging out and I'll be like, "Oh, there's a plane going overhead." And I'll just be like, "I want to see what that is, where it's going." It's cool. I'm a sado. I'm such a sad. Any aviation fan who was using the site one night in 2015 may have been surprised to discover that a Florida pilot of a private airplane registered to B&M Aviation had taken a flight path which resulted in a giant cock and balls appearing on the radar map just south of Orlando. That's Sam, please put that there. It's not clear why the pilots had taken such effort and devotion to create this giant sky penis. The chances of it being entirely coincidental must have surely been pretty slim. Dude, no, there's no chance. And there's also a smaller penis. He did it twice! It could just be that the pilot was a bit bored, or he was making some kind of political statement about the 2015 Orlando mayoral election. I would do this, but I'd just draw a penis in the sky because why not?
Sit around all day. Draw pictures of dicks.
There's no other, like, people are always reading into it like there's got to be some other motivation. It's got to be like some act of protest or something. It's like, no, sometimes I just like drawing a cock. Why not?
Dicks? Like a man dick? Yeah, like a man dick.
But whatever the motive, some critics felt that the pilot's actions were a bit of a dick move. But to be honest, I think he deserves some kind of Bell Ends Legend Award if there was such a thing. Good work, Florida man, keep it up. Why are people upset about this? It's just a laugh. It's just a bit of a laugh. You see penises drawn on everything. I'm in the park, and every day, like, you know, not every day, but like, I'll take my kid for a walk, and we'll go down this one bit in the park, and there's a giant penis just graffitied onto the ground that no one could seem to be able to remove. And it's just like, okay. I mean, I'm not offended by it. It's just like, Mike will ask, what is that? I'll be like, it's a drawing. Shh. Also, Americans have been asking me on Twitter what a bell end is, and I just recommend you use Urban Dictionary. One word, bell, B-E-L-E-N-D. Let's bring it to America. It's sort of like, it's I'd say equivalent to douchebag. You know, it's got nothing to do with the actual thing. It's just like, it's an insult. Florida man who allegedly threatened family with Coldplay lyrics ends standoff after SWAT team promises him pizza. What is going on? Finally, I'm all for the idea of non-lethal methods to bring a standoff conclusion to an end with minimal bloodshed. And it's encouraging to see the Pensacola Police Department has been experimenting with beanbag projectiles and immobilizing foam rather than just riddling the suspect with bullet holes and asking questions later. Immobilizing foam sounds like something out of sci-fi. Can you just shoot foam at people and then it hardens and they get stuck in like position? Is that a real thing? Immobilizing foam sounds good to me. Not so sure about the beanbag projectiles. Yeah, that could leave a bruise. But it seems to me that we can now add pizza to that list of non-lethal but highly effective tools that are employed by local police. In 2019, a SWAT team in Pensacola was called out in response to a call about a possible battery. The suspect in this case was the 33-year-old Charles Evan McLemore. I don't know. It's not even that hard. From Gulf Breeze, who had barricaded himself into a room with in the victim's house and now claimed that he had a gun to his head and there was no way he was going back to prison no matter what it took. Well, dude, I mean, don't barricade yourself in someone's home after doing a battery. There's no way, no matter what it takes to go back to prison. He's just not committing further crimes. Charles had previous form, you see. He'd already served 18 months in the slam of a battery on a person aged over 65 and had once held a knife to his own grandmother's neck as he threatened to kill her. Holy dude, you maybe need to go back to prison. This had apparently caused a bit of a family rift. Shocking. But although the rest of the family had attempted to cut off all communication with Charles, he often used to taunt them with menacing text messages. In one he wrote, "You with me, and I'm not the one that's going to do anything, but there's people that will." Don't do that. This was apparently a reference to the Nazi associates that he used to hang around with in jail. Nazi associates. Isn't that like the Aryan Club or whatever it's called? His final text to his estranged family before the standoff was quite bizarrely a chunk of lyrics from the Coldplay song, Fix You. Lights will guide. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will trick you. Look, he's not going to be guiding anyone home. He's not fixing anyone. He's going to be igniting their bones. What does that even mean, Chris Martin? There is an annotation on the Genius lyrics, but it doesn't explain it in any way whatsoever. So thanks, Genius. Not genius at all, are you? Are you? It's possible that Charles may have misinterpreted the upbeat tone of the lyrics, or he may have just become fixated on the ignite your bones angle. He could probably have sent a clearer message, which has gone with something like 1972 and John Lennon and Yoko Ono's classic Scumbag. The lyrics are quite dense and impenetrable on the first listen, but they reward the patience of the determined fan by eventually unfolding into something quite profound. Here's a snippet. Scumbag, 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 yeah, scumbag, 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 ho. I can write a better song. Scumbag, 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 ho, f*** you, Yoko Ono.
How innovative! I like it!
Anyway, the SWAT team now found themselves embroiled in a 4-hour standoff with Charles, who revealed that at one point he had ingested many various narcotics. And ignite your bones. But he eventually came quietly with the help when the team announced that they'd just ordered a massive pizza from Hungry Howie's and that they were offering to share it with Charles if he gave himself up. The Pensacola Police Department later posted a picture of the SWAT team posing with the box of pizza alongside the wacky caption, "Never underestimate the power of pizza with flavored crust." What is flavoured crust? That is weird. Our officers cannot comment on the rumours about pineapple being on said pizza, operational security and all that. People who don't like pineapple on pizza, it's good. Charles was later charged with the quite curious charges of aggravated stalking, probably a reference to the Coldplay lyrics, and resisting of an officer without violence. But here's the twist. According to one eyewitness, the police had never even followed up on their promise to share the pizza with Charles. They just gobbled it up among themselves like the greedy fascist pigs they are, while bundling Charles into the van. He's a criminal, that's okay. They just lied. That's a wrap. I'm going to allow it. That just seems to be a massively disappointing betrayal of trust from the police and very poor form. It's no wonder Florida's in such a state. Fuck the police. Steady on, Danny. This has been an episode of Business Blaze brought to you by the glorious people over at Sheath. There is a link below to get 20% off. Who wouldn't want that? Also, I mentioned my podcast, The Casual Criminalist. It's also on YouTube and all that. There's a link below. Thank you for watching. I'm going to finish this very cold coffee. And ignite your bones.